Most men believe release is the goal, that climax is the reward. We're conditioned to chase pleasure like addicts, trained from boyhood that gratification is freedom. But Gurdjieff would say, this is exactly where we lose control. What if your urges were not meant to be satisfied but observed? What if your craving was energy in its rawest form, and every time you give in, you lose the chance to master it? This wasn't just spiritual fluff for Gurdjieff. He saw orgasm not as a relief, but as a leak. A man loses psychic force, the kind of inner fire that, when retained, can be used to fuel something higher. Creativity, willpower, presence, vision. But instead, we trade that potential for seconds of sensation. The animal wins. The higher self never shows up. Let this sink in. You are not just a physical body chasing comfort. You're a layered being. And at the center is something that wants to awaken. But it can't if you're draining the very fuel it needs. Gurdjieff believed most people live in a kind of sleep. He called them machines, running on habits, instincts, and reactions, not really awake, just following whatever impulse shows up next. And the most powerful of those impulses? Sexual desire. It's nature's most cunning leash. It disguises itself as passion, but it's a trap. A man who is ruled by it cannot build anything lasting. Not an empire, not a mission, not even a self. There's a brutal truth here. The more often you release, the more you dilute your essence. You become scattered, weak, foggy, easily controlled. And no, it's not about puritanism or guilt. It's about strength, discipline, clarity. If you've ever practiced retention for even a short time, you know the difference. Your thoughts are sharper, your confidence louder. You walk into a room and people feel something different. Not because of your clothes or your looks, but because you're radiating unspent power. But Gurdjieff didn't stop at the physical. He believed retention wasn't the goal. It was the tool. The real goal was transformation, alchemy, turning raw desire into higher consciousness, into presence, into silence, into real masculinity. And it starts by saying no, not just once, but every day. Every time the impulse whispers, just this once, you catch it, you witness it, you don't obey, and slowly, something changes. You begin to feel the man underneath the cravings, not the boy who needs pleasure to feel alive, but the man who knows who he is without it. You become grounded, clear, focused, dangerous, because a man who doesn't need to chase is a man who's already won. Gurdjieff wasn't just warning men to abstain, he was teaching them to transmute, to turn the most base instinct in the body into the most refined force in the mind. He called this inner work. And for him, the greatest energy a man has is sexual energy, but only when it's not squandered. Let's be real. Every time you release without intention, you're not just losing fluid, you're losing something far more valuable, your presence. That magnetic force that gives you gravity when you walk into a room. The sharpness behind your gaze, the steel in your voice. It's not fluff, it's chemistry, biology, energy. And if you're constantly emptying the tank, don't be surprised when you feel flat, unmotivated, passive, emotional. You've been running on fumes. Gurdjieff saw men like this every day, scattered, reactive, always chasing something, women, pleasure, stimulation, and he called them asleep. Not because they were lazy, but because they were unconscious of what they were giving away. You see, orgasm is the final act of a script you didn't write. The body is programmed for release. It doesn't care about your goals, your mission, your potential. It just wants to survive and reproduce, that's it. But you, if you're watching this, you're not just a survival machine. You're trying to build something that demands strength, consistency, and the ability to delay gratification. And that's where most men lose. They think it's just about self-control. It's not. It's about identity. Do you identify as the man who must obey every urge, or as the man who uses urges as fuel? Because sexual energy, when retained, becomes a kind of inner voltage. Gurdjieff believed it could rise from the base of your spine up toward your head. Not metaphorically, literally. You feel more alive, more focused, more decisive. Women feel it too, not in some mystical sense, in a biological one. Your testosterone levels shift, your posture changes, your awareness expands. But here's the kicker. If you don't channel that energy, it'll rot. That's why so many men try retention and feel anxious or irritable, because they keep the energy, but they don't direct it. It's like trapping a wild animal in a cage and expecting peace. Gurdjieff warned, energy must flow. You retain it not to hoard it, but to use it for something higher. Start training, building, meditating, creating, leading, speaking, moving toward your goals with relentless focus. And the energy you used to throw away becomes the engine that drives you through discomfort, boredom, and distraction. Suddenly, you're no longer chasing pleasure. You're chasing power. And not the fake kind that comes from domination or control. Real power. The power of self-mastery. Think of the men you admire. The ones who move in silence but command respect. The ones who speak rarely but everyone listens. That's not charisma. That's stored energy. That's presence. That's what Gurdjieff called being awake. And it always begins with one thing, not giving away what you don't need to. You start by saying no to pleasure, not because pleasure is bad, but because you are more than a body. You're a will, a mind, a soul. And the moment you reclaim what's yours, your time, your focus, your essence, you begin to walk differently, think differently. You stop being pulled by the world. You start pulling it. That's the kind of man women feel drawn to without knowing why. The kind of man other men respect without needing explanation. You become still, but not soft, silent, but not weak, because you've stopped bleeding energy and started becoming a source of it. If you think the world wants you to be powerful, think again. In fact, modern society is built to keep you drained. The algorithm doesn't reward strength. It rewards weakness disguised as pleasure. Every scroll, every click, every ad is a trigger for your most primitive instincts. Sex is no longer something sacred or intimate. It's productized, on demand, delivered in high definition. And every image trains your nervous system to expect instant reward with zero effort. You've been conditioned like a lab rat. Dopamine now, regret later. But what no one tells you is that this habit of quick release doesn't just kill your time, it kills your drive. Gurdjieff understood that sexual energy is your engine. And if you keep stalling that engine every time you feel slightly bored, anxious, or lonely, you'll never build momentum in your life. Here's the harsh truth. The system doesn't want you focused. It doesn't want you to hold your energy. It wants you docile, distracted, dependent, the perfect consumer. And how do you control a man? You keep him comfortably numb. Let him think he's free while he's shackled to his own cravings. Feed him just enough satisfaction to keep him from waking up. Gurdjieff called this mechanical man, a human who reacts, obeys, consumes, without any awareness of why he's doing it. And the modern version of that man? He's the guy who thinks he's just relaxing while he mindlessly scrolls and releases every night. He thinks he's being normal, but really, he's being trained. Trained to avoid discomfort, to avoid challenge, to avoid growth. And what's worse, he's starting to believe that's all life is. But here's what Gurdjieff taught, and it's the exact opposite. Freedom begins with friction. The man who builds discipline doesn't do it because it's fun. He does it because he refuses to be a slave to his impulses. He feels the tension between who he is and who he could be, and he uses that tension as fuel. You don't become powerful by avoiding urges. You become powerful by understanding them. Why do you want to release right now? What are you trying to escape? Stress? Boredom? Loneliness? Sit with that. Watch the urge. Don't react. And suddenly, You're no longer a slave. You're a sovereign. That's what most men will never experience: self-governance. The ability to feel a wave of desire and choose your response. And the more you practice it, the stronger you get. Soon things start to shift. You begin waking up earlier, training harder, speaking with conviction, looking people in the eye without flinching. Women feel it. Men notice it. Not because you're showing off, but because you're no longer leaking energy. You become like a mountain, solid, unshakable, quietly commanding. And people don't know what it is. They can't name it, but they feel it. They feel your stored power. The paradox? The more you stop chasing pleasure, the more pleasure you actually experience. Not the fleeting kind, but the deep kind. Satisfaction from doing hard things, fulfillment from making progress, joy from being present, love from connection, not escape. That's what Gurdjieff was pointing to. He wasn't trying to shame desire. He was trying to reclaim it, to teach men that sexual energy isn't a curse, it's a compass. It tells you where your fire is, but only if you stop letting it burn you. You have a choice right now. Keep playing the modern game: quick pleasure, low energy, blurry direction, or rise above it. Start conserving, then converting. Every urge is a reminder of your potential. Don't waste it, because the man who retains and redirects is a man the world can't ignore. There's a reason most men never reach their true potential. It's not because they lack intelligence or opportunity. It's because they leak power, constantly, habitually, without even noticing. And one of the biggest leaks: sexual energy. Now, Gurdjieff wasn't some Puritan preaching abstinence for morality's sake. He wasn't telling you to fear sex. He was telling you to master it. He understood what modern science is only starting to catch up on: that your sexual energy is more than biological. It's creative force. It's the fuel of transformation. And when redirected, it becomes the most potent driver of achievement, charisma, magnetism, and clarity. He called this transmutation, the process of taking raw, primal energy and forging it into something higher. It's the difference between a man who's ruled by his urges and a man who uses those urges as tools. Think about it. Why do you suddenly feel more confident when you abstain? Why do your thoughts sharpen? Your focus improve? Why do women seem more drawn to you when you're not chasing them? Because you're no longer diffused. Your energy is concentrated. It's a principle known for centuries in spiritual disciplines. From yogic brahmacharya to Taoist inner alchemy to the early Christian ascetics, they all knew the same truth. A man who controls his seed controls his destiny, not because of superstition, but because the discipline required to hold that energy ripples out into every area of life. You stand straighter, speak less, but with more weight. You move with purpose. People feel the difference, even if they can't explain it. And here's where it gets even more interesting. When you begin to transmute that energy, your life takes on a different trajectory. You start to channel your energy into building your physique, creating meaningful work, leading with confidence, thinking deeply, connecting intentionally, mastering your inner world. The distractions that once pulled you apart lose their grip. You begin to feel anchored. And here's the part no one tells you. This is not about denial. It's about redirection. It's not that you're avoiding pleasure forever. It's that you're choosing when, how, and why to engage with it. You're not anti-sex. You're anti-waste. You begin to treat your energy like gold. And just like gold you invested, you no longer throw it away for temporary highs. You let it build interest, compound, grow, until it becomes something formidable. That's the true alchemy Gurdjieff was after. A man who reclaims his center, and from that center builds a life of excellence. And don't be fooled, the world will resist this. You'll be mocked, tested, tempted. You'll be told you're missing out, repressed, or too intense. But here's the irony. Those same people will one day wonder how you built what they couldn't, how you remained steady when they were lost, how you became a force when they stayed scattered. It's not magic, it's stored energy. Every man who ever did something great, whether it was artistic, athletic, spiritual, or strategic, knew the power of inner conservation. Gurdjieff wasn't inviting you to a vow of emptiness. He was giving you the tools to become whole, to move from fragmentation to integration, from compulsive to conscious, from drained to dangerous. And the question isn't, can I do this forever? The real question is, can I do it long enough to feel the shift? Can you sit with the fire long enough to let it purify you? Can you hold the charge long enough for it to transform into vision, clarity, and willpower? Because once you experience that shift, you'll never go back. You'll never want to, because you'll have tasted a kind of power that no orgasm, no screen, and no validation can replicate. And that power, once yours, changes everything. Imagine a man who doesn't chase, not because he can't, but because he no longer needs to. He walks through life with a calm, grounded presence. He sees through distractions. He's not reactive. He's not desperate. That's the man Gurdjieff was sculpting. Not a monk hiding from the world, but a sovereign male, fully immersed in life, but untouched by its games. This is the final evolution of energy mastery. Not just retention, not just transmutation, but integration, where your power is not something you use, it's something you are. And this is where most men stop. They experiment with self-restraint. They feel a temporary rise in energy. Then they relapse, return to old habits, and convince themselves nothing works. But Gurdjieff's path wasn't about short-term gains. It was about a total rewiring of the psyche. Because the core addiction men face isn't sex, it's escapism. The need to escape boredom, to escape pressure, to escape responsibility, to escape themselves. That's why the release becomes the drug, not because of pleasure, but because it numbs the tension of existing without purpose. But here's the hidden gift. If you can sit through that discomfort, if you can feel the raw energy without running from it, you unlock a kind of presence that is nearly extinct in the modern world. A man who is not at war with his instincts, but neither enslaved by them. He can be in a room full of temptation and still choose stillness. He can be surrounded by distraction and remain focused. He can be admired, pursued, or even provoked and stay unmoved, because his source of power isn't external, it's internal, it's renewable, and it's silent. This is what makes you dangerous in the best way. Because in a culture where most men are soft, compulsive, and emotionally chaotic, the one who masters himself becomes rare. He becomes magnetic. He becomes respected, not just by others, but by himself. And from that self-respect, everything changes. You start to attract different people. You build different habits. You speak less but say more. You move with clarity. You stop apologizing for your intensity. Because now, you understand what you're carrying. Your energy is no longer a burden to release. It's a weapon to wield. And yes, there will be setbacks. Yes, there will be urges. Yes, there will be moments you question if the path is worth it. But remember this, every time you choose discipline over dopamine, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You rebuild the temple of your masculinity, brick by brick, moment by moment. Gurdjieff wasn't offering a blueprint for celibacy. He was offering a mirror. To ask yourself, are you a man in charge of his urges? Or are you just another addict with excuses? Are you building something timeless with your energy? Or are you spending it on temporary thrills? Because when your life becomes a reflection of what you didn't waste, that's when you win. Not just in results, but in identity. You become the man who can walk through fire and remain untouched. The man whose presence says more than any performance. The man who no longer needs to conquer others, because he's already conquered himself. And that is a man the world cannot ignore.